Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm a student physical therapist with Owens Community College. Today I'll be going over how to fit for a patient in a wheelchair. I'll be going over the certain techniques, different ways, different reasons why you should be measuring a certain way, do's and don'ts, and then key components of the wheelchair. Okay, so for the first thing I'm going to talk about is measuring for your seat depth within the wheelchair. So seat depth, or this area of the wheelchair, you'll be measuring by taking the patient's buttocks, so about where my belt line starts on the bottom, and then you're going to go all the way down to the popliteal fold or the back of the knee. Now, when you get this measurement, you're going to subtract by 2, and this is because you want to have enough clearance so the edge of the seat is not rubbing against the back of the knee or the popliteal fold. We don't want this to be getting irritated. We don't want pressure ulcers to occur, and we want good circulation in the leg and not to be restricted from the seat. So. Next, I'll be talking about seat width. So for seat width, you're going to have to measure the widest parts of the patient's hips when they are sitting down. So just by going across, and then when the patient is sitting down, take the widest 2 parts of each side and get that measurement. Now, when you are taking the measurement, you're going to need to add 2 inches. We add 2 inches because when someone's in a wheelchair, they are more prone to being more sedentary, and when they're sedentary, they're going to be more prone for weight gain. So we allow that 2 inches of clearance just to give the person a little bit of wiggle room. Now, to make sure that the wheelchair properly fits, you're going to have to put your hand in between the person's hip and the wheelchair armrest. So just like this. Now, it is a little difficult for me just because I am sitting in the wheelchair. I would say there's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of wiggle room in between me and the wheelchair rest. Also, the reason for this as well is because if it's too tight, it could cause discomfort, skin irritation, pressure ulcers, and other skin problems and discomfort. When you're measuring for the back height, you're going to take where the seat starts. So from this area into the most inferior part of the scapula. So where your scapula are, the most bottom part of the scapula, and you're going to use that distance to figure out your back height. Now, with the back height, it needs to be under the most inferior part of the scapula because you're going to want a good range of motion so they're able to have their arms fully extend and flex to propulse the wheelchair. Now, if it's too high, you're not going to have that required range of motion. It's going to be very restricted, and the person in a wheelchair is not going to be able to roll around as well as they would if the back was fitted correctly. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about armrest measurement. Now, with the armrest measurement, and I'll show you here, you're going to be measuring where the seat starts. So that is about right where my finger is, if you can see that, and then all the way to the patient's olecranon process or the pointy part of the elbow. So, for example, this does not fit me at all, but bear with me. My shoulders are relaxed as they should be. When you are measuring, the shoulders need to be relaxed. The arm needs to be at a 90-degree angle, just like this. And you're going to take from the bottom of the elbow, or the most pointy part, to the seat. And then when you get that measurement, you're going to subtract by 1. Now, we're going to subtract by 1 because if it is too high, you notice how this is me at the most relaxed state I can. My shoulders are elevated, and my shoulders are elevated. I'm in an uncomfortable position. It just doesn't look natural. It's going to cause a lot of shoulder pain over a long time if the person is going to be in the wheelchair for a long time. So that is definitely a thing that you should keep in mind when measuring for the armrest. Okay, so next I'll be talking about measurements of the lower leg for the footrest of the wheelchair. Now when you are measuring, you're going to be measuring from the popliteal fold or the end or the back of the kneecap to the heel of the person. It is important to know if the patient is or is not going to be wearing shoes while they are in a wheelchair, because this also plays a factor within the length. So when you are in the wheelchair or measuring for the footrest length, you're going to need the thighs to be parallel with your heels on the ground. So from my stance, this looks pretty parallel. You don't want it to be too high, so they're up here. So for example, I'm actually going to turn this around. So this is way too high. You see, I have a lot of hip flexion with this. I sit back, my knee is almost up to the bottom of my pec. Way too high. It's going to cause a lot of pressure on the hips and the knee. So that is why it's very important for your thighs and your heels to be, the patient's thighs and heels to be parallel when you are measuring for this. Now, along with not having the foot plates too high, you need to have them just right and not too low. So when they are too low, they do have a risk of being a tripping hazard and catching something that's on the ground, potentially putting the person at risk for falling forward out of the wheelchair. So next, we're going to be talking about some key components of the wheelchair that you should also be keeping in mind when you are fitting a patient for the wheelchair. Now, first thing I'll be talking about is the push rims. The push rims are used so that the patient can push themselves in a very smooth manner, and this also ensures the safety of the patient's fingers, so they're out of the way of the actual wheels that are being used to propel the wheelchair forward. So next I'll be doing a demonstration of how that should look and what that should not look. So next I'll be talking about the caster wheels of the main components that you should be knowing. Now the caster wheels, there isn't really instructions on how to use them because they do move freely. They are used to help the patient turn in the wheelchair just like this. Without them, the patient would not be able to turn or do any horizontal movements. So that's pretty much it on the caster wheels. For the final main component that you should be knowing when fitting a patient for a wheelchair is the wheel locks. Now, the wheel locks are fairly simple. They are used to lock the wheelchair in place whenever the person wants to stay for a extended period of time, when you're doing transfers, things like that. So what you want to do, right now it's unlocked, so the lever is pushed back towards the wheel, and that is in its unlocked state. When you do want to lock it, all you're going to do is push it forward. There's a metal pin that goes into the wheel, and from this angle you can't lock it, the wheel won't go anywhere. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about a few components of the wheelchair that can be removed or adjusted. The first component we're going to be talking about is the foot plates or the leg rests. So how you're going to do this is there's a little pin on the back that you're going to release and pull it towards you, and that's going to pull the leg plates to the side. And then all you're going to do with this one is pull up, and it's going to release just like that. And then you just do the whole process in reverse when you want to put the leg rest back on. So feed it through its pins, and then you're going to push it back towards the wheelchair, and lock it in. Wiggle it a little bit just to make sure that it is locked in place. Now, the reason to do this is when you are in a stand pivot transfer, you're going to need to remove the legs to ensure that the environment is clear and the pathway between the bed and the wheelchair, or vice versa, is clear away. Okay, so next I'm going to be talking about removal of the armrest. These are also fairly easy and easy to do. So what you're going to do, I'll actually turn this around so y'all can see. There is a pin up here that you can release or push into, and it is going to release the pin that makes the armrest stick in. So by pushing that, I've lifted the front part of it, and then it's going to have the same thing in the back, except this one does not for some reason. So as you can see, I just released the armrest. Now, the reason you want to do this is also for one of your transfers. You'll be doing a slide board transfer. You want to make sure that the wheelchair is a clear pathway for the patient to transfer from bed to wheelchair or vice versa. So in this video, I've talked about a lot of different techniques and things that you have to account for when measuring for a patient that's going to be in a wheelchair. I went over some components like the caster wheels, wheel locks, and the push rims. All of these are going to be important for you to know to make sure that you create a safe environment, a safe wheelchair, and a comfortable wheelchair for your future patients. So thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all later.